Roger, how are you today?
I'm a very happy guy. Did I miss you, or did you miss me, or are we right on time?
We're right on time. We're good to go.
Right. I mistakenly thought it was noon Hawaii time, and I was wondering why I wasn't here. So this is perfect. Thank you so much.
What time is it in Hawaii right now, Roger?
It's a couple minutes till 1. It's 1 o'clock.
It's 1 o'clock. Okay. Then I was off a little bit. I was thinking it was like noon.
Yeah. It's 1 o'clock. So that's where we got a mistake. But hey,
yes.
Two negatives equal a positive.
There you go.
We
you go.
We're both wrong, and now we're both on time.
All right. Well, listen, Roger. I have with me today Roger Christie from Hawaii. And Roger, I'd like you to give my listeners a little synopsis of your life and your history. Starting, say, in 1968 when you smoked your first Colombian Gold.
It's my pleasure. Hey there, everybody. Aloha to whoever's listening to this show. And let me start out by saying the word aloha comes from the Hawaiian, and they break it up in 3 pieces. A means God. Lo is through my heart. And ha is out my breath to you. So aloha is the beauty and the love of God comes through my heart and out my breath to you. So aloha to everybody listening.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you for the opportunity. You're welcome, Arthur. Thank you for the opportunity to express myself on this topic, which is near and dear to myself and you and many good people out there. I was a binge drinking kid as a teenager. I'm Irish mostly, and the Irish family disease is alcoholism. It's unfortunately very common to Irish men especially. And I was a binge drinking teenager until I had my first puff of cannabis of Colombian Gold when I was 18 years old in 1968. And that was a really beautiful, magical moment for me because I had heard of the dangers of marijuana and how horrible it is, detrimental to one's health and well-being. And that first puff, it was literally like it said to me, let's be friends. That's the total feeling I got. That was my takeaway, let's be friends. And I couldn't help but remark at, my God, how safe and natural and simple and healthy this feels right from the get-go, from my very first puff. And yes, I did get high my very first time using it. I was with my college friend Bill Walters, and I was away at college my second year at Miami-Dade Junior College in Florida, Miami, Florida. And I was also going to Burnside Ott Aviation Training Center to become a commercial pilot. And man, that first puff was such a wonderful thing. And Bill took me on a little adventure that night. He was driving. I was high on cannabis the first time in my life, and I can remember very well listening to Simon and Garfunkel and driving in Bill's Austin Healey bug-eyed Sprite with no top on it, nice open sports car, through the streets of Miami Beach and at night looking at all the colors and the mountains and spotlights and all the palm trees and all that stuff. And it was like the world opened up to me in a whole new way. My eyesight seemed to be enhanced. My hearing seemed to be enhanced. I felt awake and alive. And a magical thing happened in addition to that. My unconscious desire for alcohol went away. And so instead of being a gateway substance, cannabis to me was a modulator, even a blocker of harmful substances, more harmful substances. So I'm 65 years old now. That was 1968, a long time ago. That's about 18 years old. And since then, I've had a very, I think, responsible and wonderful relationship with alcohol. I do like a little alcohol. Haven't had any week.
Yes.
I'm in a halfway house right now, but that August of 1968 set me on a journey. That was my first step on the cannabis road, and I became part of the cannabis culture at that time. And the cannabis culture is one of, if not the oldest sustainable culture in the world. It's a global culture of people who have used the cannabis plant for food, clothing, shelter, medicine, spiritual sacrament, and more.
Right.
And what a journey it's been. What a journey it's been. So shortly after that experience, let's see, it was another year, and I graduated from Miami-Dade Junior College with an associate's degree in science and a commercial pilot's license. And I went on my way in life. I did become a commercial pilot for a short time, but I realized it wasn't all that satisfying for me at the level I was at, because I could only afford to fly smaller planes. So as time went on, my younger brother, I'm the oldest of three, the middle brother David was called up to the draft for the Vietnam War. And David was the introverted middle brother. I was kind of the pioneer and very much a talkative people person.
Right.
And the thought of my younger brother David being drafted into the Army and going to the Vietnam War and being harmed or killed, it was unacceptable to me. And so I did a little investigation and found out that if I joined the Army with my brother, we went in on what was called the buddy program on a 2-year enlistment. We would be guaranteed to go to basic training together. And then it was because I had a priority score to the Army flight school. I would have that, and I did get that. That I was likely to go to Vietnam instead of my brother, and that's what I preferred. So we joined together in October 1970, went to Fort Dix for basic training in the U.S. Army, had an adventurous, very exciting time together, and then, wouldn't you know it, the last week of basic training, my company commander called me into the office and says, hey, I've got some good news, bad news for you. We're Vietnamizing the war because too many Americans are getting killed being pilots out there. So we're taking you out of the pilot training class and putting in a Vietnamese person, and we're going to send you to spy school to be an intelligence analyst. And like everything in life, you get to claim it, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just absolutely free will choice. I thought that was a bad thing at first, because my career path was commercial pilot. I wanted the Army to pay for my advanced training, but that was not to be. And I got sent to Fort Holabird, Maryland, to be trained as an intelligence analyst at their Pride and Joy Spy School. It was a campus that had 4 companies on either side of the quad, and the 4-sided parade ground. We had the real covert spy guys. They were across the way, about 200 of them. We had about 200 of language interpreters. We had about 200 photo interpreters, photographers, and we had about 200 analyst trainees, and that was my class. So it was adventurous and interesting and exciting. And at some point, actually 2 points during my training as an intelligence analyst, I got turned against my participation in the U.S. Army mission in Vietnam.
That was a question. That's something. Could I interrupt here for 1 second, Roger?
Please do, anytime you like.
Yeah. Okay. How did that come about? How did you become conscious about political realities and about the taking of life, and all of the things that go in to becoming a conscientious objector? How did that evolve for you?
Well, thank you for asking. That's an important turning point in my life. It might be described as an epiphany. And I am absolutely certain that it came about partly because of my smoking marijuana and having a mind-opening, consciousness-raising experience with using cannabis. So I had been smoking cannabis for about, 2 years by that time, off and on. And during the training for the intelligence analyst classes, which, as I say, were very interesting and very exciting and adventurous, two main things happened, two memorable things. And one was, we were told at some point that there were times when we would have to participate in an operation where some of our own troops would be sacrificed. And that was a moment of clarity for me that stunned me, because I was all about, you don't leave a wounded warrior behind, and every human being is precious, and every life is important, and all that stuff. And just that concept threw me. And I thought, I questioned it, but I maintained going to class to head for graduation and for orders for Vietnam. The second thing that happened was that I went in, when I was studying in the library one time, I noticed information that we had, the U.S. military had in 1970, ethno-specific biological agents in our arsenal. Ethnic, they were called ethno, but I'm going to say ethnic to make it crystal clear. The document said we had ethnic-specific biological agents to kill certain ethnic people in our arsenal at that time. And that blew my mind. I didn't have a full understanding of what that meant. I did a little quick study of it, and I did not like what I found. And I thought that was out of bounds. That was beyond the pale. There was no way on God's green earth that I was going to participate in a military mission from that moment forward. I was not going to invest one molecule of my life energy to support a military mission that had that kind of evil thinking behind it. And so I started waking up to the war in Vietnam as I was about to get orders to go there. And sure enough, I kept my mouth shut for a minute, and I did complete my classes, and I did graduate from intelligence analyst training school at Fort Hollywood, and I immediately got orders to go to serve in Vietnam, and I refused to go. I, of course, was at a crossroads in my life. Like, wow, it's kind of a fly caught on flypaper. I'm in this thing now. What do I do? But I don't want to move forward. I don't want to go, and I don't want to serve, and I don't like what we're up to. The more I learned about the war in Vietnam, the more I started listening to the protesters and the demonstrators, the more I thought, oh my God, I can feel their sincerity and their passion and their, oh my God, I think those are my people, not the military guys who were more, gung-ho and kind of the alcohol guys. So as I asked around and started wondering what the heck should I do, I heard that there was such a thing as a conscientious objector, and that might be me. So at the time, somebody suggested, and Fort Hollywood is on the edge of Baltimore, Maryland. So lots of population there, and we're not far from Washington, D.C. So we had, somebody recommended that I talk to the Quakers. And the Quakers are always anti-war, apparently. That's part of their belief system, is that they will never participate in war. And that was a new concept to me, because I was born in Colorado, Steamboat Springs. My dad was a World War II veteran of the 10th Mountain Division ski troops, the Mountaineers, and that was a thing that was celebrated and prized, and that was something we were very proud of in our family history, that our dad served in World War II in the ski troops, the original 10th Mountain Division, trained at Camp Hale, New Jersey, where I grew up and went to school, and it was right next to Morristown, New Jersey, where the Battle of Morristown was fought in the Revolutionary War. And there was lots of architecture in those days, lots of buildings still standing from the 1700s, which proudly proclaimed that the Battle of Morristown was here, George Washington slept here, the troops were, parade march was here, whatever, from the Revolutionary War. So as a young boy, I always thought that fighting for freedom was a very righteous thing to do. And I thought the U.S. was the right side to be on at all times. But I had the aha moments when I was 19 to 20 years old in the U.S. Army, and I came to be radicalized against the military mission. And I just stopped. And thank God, my unconscious prayer was that I get some help, because I didn't know what the heck to do. The Quakers helped me think about who I was, and the word morality became large in my consciousness. That my morals and values would not allow me to be used as a tool for the U.S. government to go kill people that seemingly did no damage to us. We were not fighting for our lives or fighting in a defensive position at all. It seemed to just be an artificial, unrighteous war. And I wasn't going to participate. And I was going to call myself a conscientious objector. I was objecting to my mission and to the war as in general. But I wasn't deserting. Not that I've got anything against that. The people that did that to avoid the killing people, against their will, etc. But I was going to stand tall because my dad told me to always speak truth to power, to tell, to stand there and be who I be, no matter what, and take the consequences. And my mom said, have good manners. Our family motto was manners make it man. And I think she got that from her class ring when she went to school. So those elements went into me. Stand up to power, tell my full truth, do it with good manners, and get what I get. So I applied before my court-martial came to me, which was on the way. I was told that whichever paperwork hits the company commander's desk first is going to get priority. If the court-martial hits my company commander's desk first, I'm court-martial. I have to defend myself. But if I play offense and administratively sue the Army, and my paperwork hits my company commander's desk before the court-martial paper does, the court-martial will be blocked until my case is finished. And in Latin, there's a Latin term for it, and lawyers know it well. Whoever gets to court first usually wins. And that turned out to be true. So my paperwork, my application as a conscientious objector I turned it to my company commander. It blocked any court-martial for the time being. And I went on a 6-month journey of being investigated, questioned. I went to the chaplain, did a report on me, all different levels of the company command, did interviews with me. I had to bring in letters of support and do all kinds of interviews. And 6 months later, in early July 1971, about 8 months after I volunteered to go into the Army, I surprisingly won my case. And I had done my case pro se without a lawyer. And nobody did it without a lawyer that I ever heard of. And everybody failed, and I won. And it shocked me. And I was just stunned. I thought I was going to go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the maximum security prison for 4 years. But instead, I got the big prize. I got an honorable discharge, full GI Bill, and free medical at the VA for life. And I was pleasantly surprised. I went into my company commander's office to get my discharge on my last day in the military, July 2nd, 1971. And I said, thank you very much for treating me with respect. And I said, sir, can I ask you one last question before I walk out the door? And he goes, of course, what is it? And I said, how could I possibly win this case? This is virtually have a lawyer. And he said, well, I don't have much time to discuss this, but it came down to one word. I said, really, what's that one word? He said, the one word is sincerity. He said, we knew you were sincere, and sincerity has legal value. Have a nice life. Goodbye. And that was a great lesson for the rest of my life. I told my truth to my government, and I was rewarded for it. I was respected for it. I was given benefits for doing so. And to the best of my ability, I've acted that way ever since.
That is really interesting because, one of my favorite sayings, Roger, is the facts always support the truth. and in terms of speaking the truth and being sincere about cannabis being something that God has created and given for the good of man, I sincerely believe that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to do when I relate to other people and talk about cannabis, is the fact that what most people believe about it and think about it is mostly misinformation and a little bit of ignorance and irrational fear. So,
probably non-experience.
Right. Okay.
Arthur, I would like to make one more point that's very important to learn, I think, about my process in getting out of the Army. I'll try and keep it short.
Go right ahead.
Because it was really important, and it applies to you and to me and to everybody that listens to this radio show. Contracts. When I went into the Army, they swore in, they gave me a contract to sign. In writing, of course. And it was a long document, and like most, 18 or 20-year-old guys, 20-year-old people, I didn't read every single word of it, but I had heard somewhere in the past that a contract contains two basic elements. It's an offer and an acceptance. And those two things have to be present for a contract to be made. Once an offer is accepted and signed, bingo, a contract comes into force. But when you're handed a contract or you get to read a contract, you don't have to just sign the bottom or refuse to sign the bottom. You do get a choice to accept it or not. And there's the third option. You get to look at a contract and go through every word and every line and every punctuation, and you get to put a line through things you don't like and put your initials there. And you get, when there's a blank space that says comments or other, you get to fill in whatever you want and put your initials next to it. And then you offer it back. And if it's accepted on that side, then you know what I mean? You have, it's like ping pong until the game's over. You offer it back and forth until it's just right. And then when everybody signs it, you have a contract. So when the Army offered me this contract, I had that little thought in my head. And I sat there and I read the contract, and I didn't really understand all the wording and the meaning of it, but I did see a great big blank box on the back, section 11 or something, that was blank, and it said comments or other. And I thought, I think I'm going to write something in here. And I, right on the spot, I wrote something to the effect that I will perform the duties of the United States soldier in an honorable fashion to the best of my ability, as long as the President Nixon tells the truth to the people of the United States about the war in Vietnam. Something like that. And I initialed it. And I handed it in, and the Army accepted it. many months later, when I was applying as a conscientious objector, they said, they examined me and they said, well, where did this all come from? And you signed up, you volunteered to serve, and now here you are refusing to go to war. That's a heavy crime, and we can't let anybody do that and get away with it. We can't let anybody know that there's an exit door and a way out. And what happened to you? And I said, well, you can look back at my original contract. I made a comment on there on day one. And they went, what? Nobody does that. They looked it up, and sure enough, there was my comment with my initials, and they had accepted my contract. And it was commonly known by that time that President Nixon was lying to the people of the United States by saying there was a light at the end of the tunnel in the war in Vietnam. And he had a peace plan. And instead, he bombed the hell out of the country and the poor people there. So that helped me win my case.
Well,
very important point.
Well, that was a very important thing to do, and I can see. I think they probably let you out because of that point right there, because that would have been a legal point in a court of law. And so that is amazing. So let's go forward from your military service, and then you got out. So, how long after you got out did you move to Colorado at that point?
About a year later. I got out in July 1971. I moved to Denver, back to Denver in September of 1972. So it was about a year later. And I didn't really parlay my success with the Army or understand the value of the legal success that I just had. I just felt like a lucky guy. I was grateful it was over with, and I had my honorable discharge, and I went about my life. But it would have been smart if I had awakened to the fact that was really a giant success, and I had some skills to go to law school or something.
Right.
That was pretty wonderful. Because for most of my years, let's see, from that time until 1986, I was a pretty lost guy. I mean, I had fun, and I enjoyed life, and I'm a positive person, but I didn't know what I was here to do on planet Earth. I didn't really know, examine as who I am, and you know what I mean, what my purpose was. I didn't have children. I think having children gives instant meaning and purpose to a person's life and focus, and that didn't happen for me. And so I was wandering and going from thing to thing and position to position and whatever, trying to find myself. And it became a very painful thing for me to not know what I was here on earth to do, feeling that there was something out there that I was supposed to be doing, and finding my way, and being kind of envious of those that seemed to know what they were doing here and had found their way in life and, built successes. I wanted to be that guy or that person. And finally, out of the pain of not being that person, and asking God to show me the way, to light the path in front of me, because I almost wanted to kill myself because I was so depressed at one point in time. It's just working for money. It was just so shallow for me. I couldn't stand to do it anymore. I wanted to work for meaning and purpose and beauty and love, things like that, values other than cash. And finally that came to me.
Is that why you went into politics
yes.
in the Denver, I guess it was, that you ran for mayor?
I ran for mayor of Denver, Colorado in 1978 when I was 28 years old, against Bill McNichols. He finished his second term as mayor. He was an older guy, I think in his early 70s. He was going for his third and final term. And I just couldn't stand it. I was reading the paper. I knew that the population, especially the new population of Denver, was filled with baby boomers from 18 to 35 years old at that time. We were the majority of the population, and we seemed to have no voice in politics. And we were getting arrested constantly for for smoking marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck is going on here? Something is out of balance. And how come there's no voice for the majority of the people? And so I just thought, geez, I don't know. Maybe I'm that voice, or I could be that voice. And sometimes I've heard the saying, there's room at the top. And I don't know, maybe it's because I was born with a lot of love and a lot of hope and a lot of positivity showered on me. I mean, I had the nicest childhood a human being can have, just about, in the first 5-6 years of my life, that I wanted the world to be like that. I wanted to find that comfort and that love wherever I went in the world around me. And maybe being the adult child of an alcoholic dad was another big factor, that something went wrong in our family, and I felt I had to fix it. And I felt something was wrong in the family of We the People in Denver, and it needed fixing. And I volunteered to help fix my family when I was 7 years old. My father abandoned our family, and my mom was left there crying. So I put my arms around my mom, and I had to be that little man and family helper. And I grew up to be the man that tries to be the family helper on the big scale, because I don't have a personal family at that time and no children. So I just considered everybody as part of my unadopted family. And I wanted to, if nobody was going to fix this drug war, the war on marijuana in Denver, then I was going to volunteer to do it. So I ran for mayor. A great experience. Wow. I was welcomed with full respect. Even Bill McNichols, the incumbent, was McNichols Arena. Was named after. At some point, because I was the new guy in politics, the Denver Post wanted to keep me out of the big debate. And I showed up for it anyway, and dressed and ready to go. And the moderator said, no, you're not, you're just kind of nobody in town here. You're just doing this, this self-aggrandizement or whatever. You've got no campaign finances and no visible public support. You're not allowed in the debate. And to his good credit, the mayor, Bill McNichols, stood up for me and said, hey, the young man's a perfectly legitimate candidate. He deserves to be in this debate, like in equal treatment, like all of us. And I remember the host of the debate being shocked at that, and I had to swallow his attitude and bring up another chair and welcome me onto the debate. And it was a beautiful learning experience. Another experience that I had that was worth mentioning, I think, was that the next day, I think it was, the Denver Post had a photo of that debate the night before. And I wanted to buy the paper and, read the story about it, because I was there. But in the photo, they only showed 4 candidates and left me out. They took the picture, over my shoulder and showed the other candidates but left me out. So I stormed into the editor's office at the Denver Post the next day holding the paper, and I was fuming. It's like, hey, what's the deal? I was there last night. You saw me, and here you're not acknowledging the truth. I said, that's, what's this about, isn't this freedom of the press? And he said to me, young man, freedom of the press is for those who own one. Have a nice day. And I thought, you might be right. Anyway, it was a learning experience, and I got experience in education and speaking my truth to power and promoting the legalization of marijuana in public. I still have the clippings to this day from 1978. So I realized that there were times when something was wrong in the community, especially concerning the war on drugs, which loomed large for me, because I knew how wonderful, safe, and natural and beautiful cannabis was, especially compared to alcohol and cigarettes, which were common and legal and available at every corner drugstore and gas station. And I couldn't stand the beautiful baby bloomers being taken apart, taken off the street one at a time. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of my brothers and sisters boomer population disappeared, were harmed, were labeled felons, were served time in prison, had their families broken up, had their children taken away by CPS, were denied college, loans, were denied jobs. It's like a civil war to me. It's still raging in this country to this day.
It is.
And gets me passionate about it, and I can't stand it, and I want it to end today, as soon as humanly possible. Because everybody harmed by this war is getting hit by friendly fire. Do you know that term?
Oh yes, friendly fire, collateral damage, whatever you want to call it. It's the whole
we're
thing.
Shooting our own.
Yes, it's
We're shooting our own people.
Yeah, I know it.
Crazy?
We're making war on our own people, and the sad part about it is we're not even fighting back through the bullet of the ballot. You know,
we've never been given the opportunity to vote on the war on marijuana.
Yeah. Well,
never once. I mean, until medical marijuana came along and until legalization. But on the federal system, no. Patriarchal, pretty much, old white men
yes.
tell us the way it's going to be based on their prejudice and their vested interest. And that bullshit has got to stop, and stop right now.
Yes, it does. It needs to stop. So, okay. So you ran for the mayor of Denver, and so how much between the time that you ran for the mayor of Denver and the time that you went to move to Hawaii, tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, it's lived 12 very happy years in Denver. Had a cute little Victorian house that I fixed up, 1912 Victorian. I bought for $20,000. I had my own business, a paint contracting business, and I was just a guy in the community, work-a-day guy. Had a beautiful girlfriend. Had a nice little life, but it was modest, and I was using cannabis.
Yes.
And almost on a daily basis, and then I started growing it in my backyard in Denver. And bingo, that was wow. That was another eye-opening experience, because for so many years we used to get Mexican pot,
mm-hmm.
and we would take the seeds and the stems off of it.
Mm-hmm.
We had little wheels and separators and little gadgets. What the heck were they called? They were really fun. A little plastic wheel, you spin it, and the seed stems come out one side and you get the smokable material on the other.
Right.
And I am so sorry to say that I would throw the seed away in the trash. And I didn't know what I was throwing away. I know the extraordinary nutritional value of the marijuana seed at that time. Now I've come to know it's the healthiest food on earth. Nutrition science says the hemp seed, the marijuana seed, is the healthiest single food source on this earth. And I was throwing them away until one day, my girlfriend had a friend who was a stripper in Fort Collins, and some biker gave her some special marijuana seeds, which she gave to my girlfriend, which my girlfriend gave to me. And I held them in my hand like Jack and the Beanstalk, and it's like, wow, these look like magic seeds. I've never seen seeds that look like snake skin. They were like striped and speckled and plumped, and I thought, oh my God, what am I holding in my hand here? There's just about 20 of them. And I planted them in my backyard in Denver, and I grew a crop of the most amazing cannabis that I've ever seen, maybe before or since, because I loved it up so much. The air is very dry in Denver. I had a little greenhouse in the backyard. I had a humidifier that I put liquid fish fertilizer in, so it made an aromatic mist in the air. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any training or how-to book. I just went by instinct. And I grew this crop. It was like Jack and the Beanstalk in a way. I mean, which I think, by the way, Jack and the Beanstalk is about growing cannabis and having the magic beans and finding, the giant when he climbs up real high. He faces his fears and comes back down to earth, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I think a lot of the old fairy tales actually are based on cannabis. But I grew an amazing crop, and it opened my eyes to organic farming and the wonders of planting a seed and harvesting something that's sacramentally fantastic in my own backyard. In a little space. I just had a little backyard, but boy, it then put out a fantastic crop of cannabis buds. And let's see, a wonderful thing happened in the negatives at first, but turned out to be positive. My youngest brother was living with me at the time, and some knucklehead neighbor, high on PCP, jumped the fence and came into our yard and stabbed my youngest brother almost to death in my house.
Oh, my.
Whew, boy, was that wicked and terrible. And he almost died that night, but he didn't, thank God. And his girlfriend's father, who was living on Maui at the time, said, get the hell out of Denver, move out of that house, move out of that town, come over here to Maui. I own 3 restaurants. I'm busy as it could be. The employees are stealing me blind. I can't handle all this. Pick one of these restaurants. Let me give you a restaurant to run. So my youngest brother and his girlfriend went out to Maui, and I don't know if you know Maui at all, but one of the most beautiful places on Maui is called Kapalua, and my brother's girlfriend, who became his wife, Nancy, her dad gave them the Market Cafe in Kapalua, which I maintain to this day was the most beautiful restaurant I've ever seen in my life before or since. And my younger brother, who had not 5 minutes experience in the restaurant business, ran that. I think they made about $1 million a year for 10 years during the 80s. And at some point in time, he invited me out there so I could have a job as a waiter or something, anytime I wanted. And that was my introduction to Maui and to Hawaii in May of 1985. By the way, I was just giving up 2 years' worth of doing cocaine on a recreational weekend basis. And I promised myself once I got on that plane, I would never do cocaine again. And I got off the plane in Maui, and I never did cocaine again. And that was a very healthy thing. I thought, I want to get high. I want to feel good. I want to feel great. I don't want to feel normal. I want to feel exceptional. And so I need healthier substitutes. And I realized that instead of spending $100 on a gram of cocaine, I could spend $100 at the health food store and get a whole bag of some of the healthiest food products and vitamins on earth. And if I did that every week instead of spending it on cocaine, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, I'd be a pretty healthy guy. And that's turned out to be the case. So that was Maui for a year. And I went back. Oh, yeah, I was introduced to magic mushrooms in Maui. God, what a beautiful sacrament that is. And somebody showed me how to, on a sunny morning, how to go in the cow pasture and look for the cow pies. And there'd be sometimes little mushrooms growing out them from the dew and the wet, the dampness from the night before and the sunshine hitting it. There's a certain combination of cosmic elements and physical elements that make these mushrooms grow out of the cow pies. And if you pick them off and just eat them fresh right there, bingo, a couple of them, you're going to open up your mind to something that is so spectacular and wonderful. It'll just, expand your mind and you'll start to see rainbows in every time it rains in every drop. And the world's going to be a beautiful, friendly place. And Spirit, God, whatever you want to call the great you name it, is going to kiss you on the cheek and shake your hand and pat your back and say, welcome to the family of man, that we're all one and there's no private thought. You're a spiritual being in a human body. And wow, what an opening that was for me.
Roger, I could see this interview is going to take, we're going to have to do 2 or 3 interviews, I think. So what I would like to do, we've done like a 45-minute introduction to you today, and I would like to call you again next Sunday if I could, and we'll do another segment until we can go through all these different time periods of your life that have significance and value, I think, to our listeners, that they may learn some things. So let's end this one today. If I could, I'll call you back. It'll be 5 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock your time next Sunday. And we will continue on with another segment, 45-minute segment, till we get through all these different periods of your life. Is that agreeable to you?
Well, that'd be my pleasure, Arthur, because this Friday, November 14th, I am released from Federal Bureau of Prisons custody, and I have 3 days of being under no custody until I'm on the 17th of November become under the custody of the U.S. Probation Office. So Sunday, a week from today, I'll be home for the first time in 5 years on my honeymoon, because my wife married me and we married each other inside the federal prison. So I'll be fresh on my honeymoon and in a very good frame of mind.
Okay. Then we have a date for next Sunday.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's my pleasure. God bless you, Arthur.
You too. It's a pleasure talking with you. I've enjoyed listening to your story. I know our listeners will. And like I say, we'll just keep it till we get all the way through to 2014. Okay?
Well, you're the moderator, my friend, and it's my pleasure to enjoy this conversation with you.
I will see you next week. You have a good week.
It just got better. Aloha.
Aloha.